5 Live Formula One.
He has done it. Max Verstappen is a 4-time world champion. He's taken his 4th consecutive driver's title here in Las Vegas. Welcome to your Checkered Flag podcast with me, Rosanna Tennant. I'm joined by our lead commentator, Harry Benjamin, and former W Series driver, Alice Powell. Guys, Max Verstappen is world champion. It's all over. We've still got 2 races to go, but Max Verstappen has done it again. Harry, what a year he has had.
Absolutely phenomenal. I said it on air. I think this is his best world championship yet. Just 27 years old, 4-time champion, 4 in a row as well. Couldn't quite do it on the podium here in Vegas. Red Bull just didn't quite have the pace in hand, but it seemed that in that race, especially in the latter part, it was clear that Max Verstappen just wanted to seal this title at the earliest opportunity possible. But when we think back to the start in Bahrain, when we all were gearing up for a Red Bull Max Verstappen domination of a year, it hasn't been that way. Off the track, there's been noise going against him with the allegations surrounding Christian Horner, the controversy that Red Bull and his team have been in, not to mention the relationship managing Max has had to do between his own father and team principal. That noise off track, Adrian Newey leaving the team and losing performance, to fight back in all that adversity and to stay cool, calm and collected. That's what makes this his best world championship yet, and he's just phenomenal. Well done, Max.
Absolutely well done, Max. We are sitting in the Red Bull hospitality area, and as I look over my shoulder through the window, I can see Christian Horner talking to some of the team members, some of the partners, I'm sure, wanting to share in the success of Max Verstappen and Red Bull. They're all wearing these world champion t-shirts. Always tricky to know when to start packing them. Of course, this was the first weekend that Max could have sealed the title. He has done it, so no need to freight the t-shirts on to Qatar and Abu Dhabi. They'll save on some of the postage costs. Harry has spoken about how much Max Verstappen's had to deal with this year, Alice. We often talk about how a driver puts the visor down and forgets everything, goes into attack mode, but there has been so much going on in the background. How has Max Verstappen managed to stay so calm and cool and collected? He's still so young, and yet he deals with the pressure so well, doesn't he?
He does, and that's what makes him, and many other reasons as well, a great racing driver. As you said, so much going on. Start of the year, it seems like a long time ago, start of the season, with the whole saga with Christian Horner. But Max is just such a professional that he's able to block everything out. He almost puts himself in his own bubble. You know, he focuses on things that he can control. Everything outside with Christian Horner, with Newey leaving, etc., that's not in his control, and he does such a good job of being able to separate that and just focus on the job in hand, and that was winning as many races, working with the engineers to get the car back to where we've seen that Red Bull being so dominant. He's not had the best car on the grid all throughout this year, unlike what we saw last year. And he's got his elbows out at times, some controversy, some drivers complaining about his driving standards, but at the end of the day, he's played to the rules. He's been tough at times, maybe pushed the limits a bit too far, but isn't that what champions do? Michael Schumacher, who a hero of mine, he's one of them that springs to mind.
Exactly, that's what separates us mere mortals and even some of the drivers from these champions and repeat champions. Not only the off-track noise has been going against Max Verstappen and Red Bull, but also the driver guidelines. His own way of overtaking and defending has been called into question, but he is driving to the absolute limit. He knows the rules inside and out, and he is going to the absolute limit every single time. And as a result, well, those guidelines are now going to be changed for Qatar because people aren't quite happy with them. But that doesn't matter, because at least Verstappen knows what he can get away with and what he cannot. And even though that might be changing, I think that still highlights just how Verstappen is in that group of Michael Schumacher, Lewis Hamilton, the legends of this sport. He won't be here till he's 40 years old, racing around like Fernando Alonso. So we've got to lap this up while we've got it. And the fight is only just beginning, I think, as things get even more juicy next year when it all converges again.
Yeah, I think 2025 is going to be a very interesting championship. I know some of the drivers, George Russell, who I spoke to earlier on, said, we now need to put Max Verstappen under pressure. People want to take the fight to him. Exactly. Well, you never know in 2025. I spoke to Max Verstappen after the race. He came into the media pen holding a can of beer. Normally he holds a can of Red Bull, but he swapped that out, swapped in the beer. Celebrations already starting. And I asked him how different the emotions were today compared to the 3 championships he's already secured, and this is what he had to say.
Yeah, I mean, every championship has been different, so I think that's also what makes it beautiful, because if they're always the same, that's boring as well, so in terms of emotion. So this one again was very rewarding because of the tough season that we had, especially in the middle of it, where it seemed like we were really in a negative spiral and we couldn't get out of it, and I think we really pulled through. We stuck together as a team. We analyzed a lot of stuff, and we came out of it again, finding a bit more up front and closer to the front. And that's, of course, something that I'm very proud of.
You talk about that as a team effort, but personally yourself, where have you dug deep from? What have you dealt with this year, and how have you got through it?
To always maximize every result, or even overperformed, I feel, in some places where, it was not looking great for us. But that's how you win championships at the end of the day.
That was Max Verstappen talking to me a short while ago, recently crowned a 4-time world champion, and there are not many of those. We have to spare a thought, of course, for his biggest title rival this year, coming out of nowhere, really, McLaren in the last couple of years, and it was Lando Norris, who could have taken the fight to Max Verstappen. He could have taken it on to Qatar, but perhaps it was inevitable. Perhaps it was always going to go Max Verstappen's way, and it just went a little quicker and came this evening. But Lando Norris, he's learnt so much, hasn't he, about how to go racing, just for himself, but also going up against someone like Max Verstappen. There's more to come from him, surely, Harry.
Yeah, I think Lando's taken and will take a lot of learnings from this season, and the team as a whole. Lando Norris is one of the top drivers in this field, and the team started the year nowhere near feeling like they could be in championship contention. But actually, that car and Lando Norris has been the fastest since, I think, about 6 races in. If you look at the qualifying statistics, that car has been faster marginally over the Red Bull. So could this have been Lando Norris's championship? Absolutely it could have been. If they had gone a different way at certain strategies earlier on in the year, if things had panned out differently when it came to races like at Silverstone, or if you even go to Canada. But how much of that is luck and where the chips fall, and how much of that is down to mistakes with the team and the strategy? That's the key differential here, but both will take learnings. Lando Norris was always the outside bet. I think he will be gutted by the fact he wasn't able to at least keep this challenge going all the way to Abu Dhabi. However, that's fine. I think it's a bit too harsh to really sort of toe the line and go, well, they lost this championship back in Miami when Lando Norris took his first win and should have focused then on it. I think it's too harsh to say that. So at the end of the day, Norris will become a better driver off the back of this season and will be a force to reckon with once again next year. The only problem they'll have is that they'll have, I think, the Ferraris straight out of the blocks as well. The Mercedes might well come to the fore. The thing that stopped Lando Norris and McLaren winning this title is the fact that McLaren were not fast right from the very off this season.
Yeah, but they've still got a championship that they could win, and that's the Constructors' title. However, the gap has come down now between Ferrari and McLaren. 23 points separate them going into the final 2 races. And looking at the form of McLaren this weekend, we expected them to go a lot better, and they struggled. They really, really struggled. Ferrari have said they expect themselves to struggle in Qatar, but I think it's just so unpredictable at the moment because no one saw Mercedes getting a 1-2 and topping every single session this weekend.
So the Constructors' Championship is still, I'm not going to say wide open, but still to be decided. And we think it will be between McLaren and Ferrari. Red Bull slipping back to P3 in the standings. But of course, it's a big evening for the team. Max Verstappen's taken the championship. The team are celebrating with him. They have helped him, of course, achieve the great success he has done over the last few years. I spoke to their team principal, Christian Horner, just after the checkered flag had flown. And this is how he summed up the emotions of the team.
Yeah, incredible. I mean, he's done an amazing job. He's been outstanding all year. We're just very, very proud of him. I mean, he's driven brilliantly. He's won 8 Grand Prix. He's won the World Championship with 2 races ago. You can't ask for more than that.
And it's been a difficult year, and yet still he's managed to perform.
Yeah, he just gets in the car and he delivers. And he's a great human being. He's a great kid. He's an exceptional driver. It puts him amongst the greats. Absolutely puts him amongst the greats. He's, statistics now put him there as well.
And 4 to his name. Do you think there are more to come his way as well?
Look, I mean, he's only just turned 27 and he's in the form of his life. So, as long as we can keep giving him a decent car, then he'll keep delivering.
I'll let you get through to hopefully congratulate him yourself.
Thank you very much.
That was Christian Horner's initial reaction at the end of the Las Vegas Grand Prix to Max Verstappen becoming a 4-time world champion. And Harry Benjamin, Alice Powell and myself, Rosanna Tennant, we're sitting on the steps or the sort of terrace of the Red Bull hospitality area. And we're just watching all the sort of comings and goings. Lots of people wanting to come and celebrate with the team, congratulate Max Verstappen and Christian Horner, and a lot of the media just lurking. I can see some Netflix cameras as well, eager to capture
Well, does that
this
include
moment.
us? We're kind of lurking as well.
No, we're here doing a very proper job. It is a little breezy, I have to say. The wind has really got up since the end of the Grand Prix, and it is a little chilly, but people are braving the elements to come and sort of drink all this in and savour the moment, because when you're living it, you slightly forget that you're part of history being made, and Max Verstappen is going to go down in the history books, as you mentioned earlier, as one of the greats. How many more can he achieve? And you said, Harry, didn't you, that he doesn't want to stick around until 40 even. He doesn't want to be here as long as Fernando Alonso has. So what do you reckon? What's the? We're talking about shelf life this week, haven't we? We've been talking about it because of Toto Wolff's comments in the Mercedes book that was recently published. But shelf life of Max Verstappen, does he have one?
Max Verstappen could race as long as he well pleases in this sport. I wonder, we've got 2026 on the way, big regulation change. The first hurdle is to know whether he will stay out his contract with Red Bull, which doesn't end until 2028. But there are rumours surfing that, well, if Red Bull powertrains don't deliver in 2026, might he be tempted to join Adrian Newey over in Aston Martin? And I reckon he'll see what 2026 brings, whether it's at Red Bull or another team, how well his performances are. And then I think there's a bit of pride to be taken if you can win in multiple eras of Formula One, for instance, and perhaps do that for a few more years and then do some sports cars and Le Mans racing. You know he wants to do that. Runs his own esports team as well. I think that's the way he's going to go. Max is such an interesting character that look, I've not been in this sport very long, but I've dealt with Max a couple of times, and he is painted out sometimes to be the villain over the last couple of years. But actually, when you talk to him and you get a glimpse of him as he is as a normal 27-year-old guy, he's actually one of the nicest, chillest, down-to-earth drivers in this entire paddock. You would not know this man has just won a 4-time world champion, has just become a 4-time world champion, just walking past him on the speed. And I think it's that kind of mentality that will keep him in the sport for as long as he wants, whether that's 10 years, 5 years. I think he's got at least 7. We'll go down the middle somewhere.
So you think 7 championships, you mean, or 7 more years in the sport?
I think 7 more years.
7 more years.
What are we now? 24.
Alice is shaking
7.
her head.
Very specific number, but we'll go with
I
it.
don't think you can answer the question. He said that he won't be racing till he's 40, and I feel like Max is the type of guy to just say at the end of the year, do you know what, I'm satisfied with what I've done. That's it.
Could he do a Rosberg?
Do you know what? I asked Max Verstappen that after his first World Championship, and I went to Red Bull. They invited some media up there, and we sat and took our turns at asking him questions. And I said, can you understand someone like Nico Rosberg, basically dropping the steering wheel and going after securing their first championship? He said, absolutely not. This feeling is so great. I want to do it again. So it's interesting, isn't it, how just the years change you, and he's spoken about wanting to spend more time with friends and family. He spoke about that in his wonderful interview that he did with our colleague Andrew Benson, the BBC's F1 correspondent, saying that, time is finite. You only have a certain amount of time on this planet. He's obviously lucky to be spending the time in an incredible way racing in Formula One, but he wants to spend time with friends and family.
He does. He's close to his family. He enjoys his sim racing. He's touched about hoping to one day race at Le Mans. And he's not bothered about records. He said that in numerous interviews. He even said it to Andrew Benson at the start of the weekend. He's not bothered about these records that some drivers enjoy chasing and want to break records. At the end of the day, Max just wants to win.
Yeah,
and
whether
he
it's
wants
one race, two race, a championship.
Exactly,
yeah.
you know, and I think it's hard for us to say, well, how many more years has he got? The only thing he's going to say is he's not going to be here till he's 40.
Yeah, well, there we go. The championship has been won by Max Verstappen. But there was a Grand Prix going on, wasn't there, at the same time today? I know, obviously Max Verstappen was in that Grand Prix, but let's turn our attention to our podium finishers. It was George Russell who took the checkered flag, celebrating even before he'd really come around the final turn. And it was his teammate Lewis Hamilton, an incredible recovery drive from P10 on the grid to finish P2, so a Mercedes 1-2. And then in third position, Carlos Sainz, the lead Ferrari on the road today. He finished P3. So George Russell, he's had a few moments this year where luck has not gone his way, but in this incredible city, Las Vegas, the land of Lady Luck, it really did go his way tonight, and he brought it home. But my goodness me, there are still so many questions when it comes to how and why he and the Mercedes team did so.
I don't think they know that, so we're not really going to know it. I think the only thing we can glean is that in colder temperatures they seem to perform better, and when there is little to no grip on a track, that does help the Mercedes cars. They'll be deep diving into that, but the times they perform well and when they've won is when we've experienced colder temperatures. Go back to Silverstone a little earlier this year, Spa as well. So it really was out of the blocks on Friday. We should have all just seen it coming, but we didn't believe it. But this was Mercedes' race to lose from Friday of FP1. And George Russell on pole, led from the start, led every single lap, fended off an early challenge from Charles Leclerc, who ended up eating too much into his tyres and had to fall back. Was expected to be a one-stop race. That turned into a 2, to the surprise of all of us. But Russell had it under control from start to finish. Then there was a late charge from Hamilton right at the very end, and we suddenly thought, oh, here we go. Are we going to get the two teammates battling it out? Hamilton, we know, was out for blood after his poor qualifying yesterday. But Russell had it in hand, was able to manage the pace, manage his tyres for a 5-second gap, and just was perfect this evening, under the lights.
Yeah, how many times did you say that in commentary?
Under the lights in Las Vegas, about 700 times, I would say.
It's so
Radio, Rosanna, got to paint the picture.
Oh, absolutely, you're painting the picture for us beautifully. You are right, though. I think George Russell did have some pace in hand on that second stint, or final stint. Let's hear whether that was true. That's the question I asked him when he came into the media pen after the race.
Incredible to get the victory. I mean, stint 1 was an amazing stint. Pulled a massive gap to everyone, and there on in I just sort of managed the tyres, because I knew the only way we'd lose this race is if we started graining the tyre. And Lewis showed great pace towards the end, but deep down I knew that wasn't sustainable, and it was just so nice to cross the line in P1.
I was worried about that plastic bag, but it seemed to go away. There was a little bag caught up in your car.
I got to be honest, I didn't even see it.
Oh.
So I don't know what it was.
Looking back over the course of the season, are you able to find some common denominators where the car has performed and you can think back and think, oh, actually, we did that and that's why we got the performance? Are you not in a position to do that yet?
To be honest, when I sit back and think about it, I think we've led 7 or 8 races this season. And every time we've been leading, there have been such challenging races. You had Montreal, it was raining and drying and raining. And then we had Silverstone, we were comfortably in the lead, and then it started raining, and then we had the DNF. Belgium, we won and disqualified. Brazil, we were leading comfortably with Lando, and the red flag came. So, I think in slightly different circumstances, we could have probably won 5 races this season. Now, in my eyes, this is my 3rd race win of the season. It has been very up and down, but yeah, I think we missed out on some other results.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because if you don't know when you're doing well how you got there, you don't really know how to unpick it, Alice, and you don't know how to replicate it. So when it comes to next weekend in Qatar and the following weekend in Abu Dhabi, they're still going to be scratching their heads.
Or maybe they do know and they just don't want to share it with us, Rosanna. I think the cooler temperatures, should I say, have got something to play in it. I actually looked at the weather for Qatar next weekend. It's going to be nowhere near as warm as it was when we raced there last year. Both of us were there last year, and it was not bearable at all being out of the car, let alone being in the car. So looking at temperatures, warmer than here, so I think possibly they won't perform as well. But who knows, because it's just unpredictable. We thought coming into this weekend that this is a track that should suit the McLaren, and look what's happened to them.
Very, very interesting situation Mercedes find themselves in, and we are now getting to the twilight phase of 2024, and we've all got to get going again in 2025. And if they've still got question marks now, you sort of fear they may still have question marks when we all go down under in March for the Australian Grand Prix to kick off the next season.
Yeah, well, that's the tricky one, isn't it?
Because it's not a revolution, is it? It's an evolution.
Yeah,
next
exactly.
year of the
There
cars.
will be further convergence, effectively, because I think some of the reason of Red Bull's poor performances this year have been that them and a couple other teams are reaching the limit of what is possible in this regulation cycle. There's not really more upgrades you can bring, and are they worth it, because we've got a big regulation change coming in 2026. So that has been their issue. It's been the consistency, been the up and down nature. But this weekend has been so weird in general, though, in terms of the performance up and down the grid. So it will be intriguing to know what Qatar will go like with the change in temperature. Slightly different track as well. You've got more long duration corners. That doesn't favour teams like Ferrari, for instance. They're not expected to go well. How will Mercedes do there? Abu Dhabi as well. I don't know is the short answer of it, but I think Mercedes, they've had so many false starts, so many North Stars have come their way, and just when they think they've got a hold on it, it falls away from them. 2025, they've got to be there. 2026, they've got to be back as world champions. Otherwise, I think heads will start to roll at the top level.
That's a bit cool. Do you know what? After I'd asked my questions to George, a journalist next to me asked him whether this was a good confidence boost for him going into next year, given that he's going to have a new teammate in Kimi Antonelli, with Lewis Hamilton departing for Ferrari. And he said, I didn't need a confidence boost. Look, I'm up against a 7-time world champion. That's a challenge enough, isn't it? And of course, reading between the lines, he beat that 7-time world champion today, and he beat him to pole position yesterday. So yeah, I think there's a lot of people saying in the paddock that George Russell's one of the most underrated drivers, or maybe underappreciated drivers, because actually what he has been able to do against Lewis Hamilton is pretty impressive. As you shiver, Alice.
The gust of wind is getting quite windy here. I've got so many layers on. I think I'm going to put my woolly hat back on. But yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think that, he has done a great job against Lewis Hamilton this year. Lewis has made it clear that he's not happy with the car at all. Lewis made a mistake in qualifying yesterday. Otherwise, I think that he probably would have shared the front row with George Russell. What position they would have been in, I'm not sure. But a great drive from Lewis, and Lewis actually said in his in his interview to Jenson Button just before the podium, I think if I'd done well in qualifying, it would have been a breeze for me this afternoon, implying that he would have won the race. So I feel like there's maybe a little bit of tension between the two of them there to say, no, I'm the best, no, I'm the best, no, I'm the best. But at the end of the day, George Russell's done a great job. He's the one that put it on pole position, and he's the one that won the race. But you have to take your hat off to Lewis Hamilton for a great drive from 10th on the grid.
It was an incredible recovery, and as you mentioned, Alice, think of where he could have ended up. Let's hear what Lewis Hamilton had to say then after the Grand Prix. A very, very good drive from P10 on the grid, but let's hear how he was feeling after that one.
Yeah, really happy for the team. I'm happy that we had good pace and exceptional performance from everybody.
And in terms of the next two races then, I know it's a weird track this with the conditions. Obviously we now move to proper deserts, as it were, where it'll be a lot hotter. Will the performance then ebb away a little bit?
Well, we have no idea where it's come from, so it'll be interesting to see how it performs in the next couple of races, but it was amazing today. The car was fantastic. So.
There was obviously so much performance in the car this weekend for Lewis Hamilton to pick off the field like that, Harry. He was driving, as you said, almost with a point to prove. It was very different to the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, his radio message as he came across the line, thanking the team, really praising them and pleased to be a part of it. And obviously a couple of weeks ago at the end of the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, it was almost like, am I even going to be here in the next few races? That was the message he was trying to give. But it's really changed, and hopefully the next two races he can have some nice results to see off his Mercedes contract and tenure in style.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Hamilton was ready to call it quits at the end of Sao Paulo by the sounds of his radio message. So to rock up here in Vegas, we mentioned earlier about the shelf life comments as well. They were written in a book a little earlier on in the year, comments said by Toto Wolff. It's only now really they've just kind of come to light publicly. And that has caused a bit of tension. And I just wonder, Lewis Hamilton performs best really in the face of adversity when he's got a fight on his hand. And I think that lit his fire a little bit for this last run to the season. I think in the last couple of races, Sao Paulo, a few races before that, it must be so hard to keep your motivation up in a team that you know you are leaving when you have had such highs and now experiencing in comparison such lows. To have something that will fire you up just to get you to the end of the year, light at the end of the tunnel, I think that's what's happened this weekend. Not to mention Lewis Hamilton is an absolutely phenomenal driver and one of the best the sport has ever seen. However, the car has been difficult to drive. He's been outperformed by George Russell this season, especially in qualifying. And to come back to Alice's point about maybe there being tension there a little bit as well, I mean, that's surely got to do with, well, Lewis is leaving. George is going to be the team leader now. He's stepping up into that number one role. And if we are to believe the little rumours that are going around of it's going to be a fight between Andrea Kimi Antonelli and George Russell next year to see who comes out on top, and that will decide who Max Verstappen partners, blah, blah, blah. Russell has got to put a marker down and show that he is Mercedes' next world champion. He is the man leading that team forward. And for Lewis Hamilton, well, his future is with Ferrari. And I think in my gut, he's already seeing red in terms of where he'll be next year. These last couple of races, I'm sure he'll be hoping for great results, but I think he has now got his mindset on next year.
He was seeing quite a lot of red, wasn't he, this evening as he was chasing down the Ferraris. Lewis Hamilton on the radio saying, these guys are quick on the straight. And I think everyone, I'm sure in commentary, up and down the commentary boxes were saying, oh, he must be so happy that they're fast on the straights for next year. But actually, people were talking about that in the media pen with him. And he said, I wasn't thinking about that. I was only thinking about winning. So I think there was one thing on his mind this evening.
I agree with him. I don't think he's necessarily thinking about next year because he's a racing driver and any racing driver wants to win, whether they're moving on from a team next year. I think he'll find it quite nice if he gets a win with his Mercedes team in the final two races. He's had a lot of great history with Mercedes, majority of his world titles with them, and a lot of success and some lows as well, which comes along with motorsport. So I think he's still focused on trying to win a race and add to his many wins, over 100 wins, of course, for Lewis Hamilton. He's looking to add to that tally. Doesn't matter if he's driving a silver Mercedes or a red Ferrari.
It would be poetic, wouldn't it? A little bit like him winning the British Grand Prix in his final year with Mercedes. It's always very romantic, isn't it, with Lewis Hamilton? Well, behind him, it was Carlos Sainz, of course, the driver he'll replace at Ferrari next year. A tough race for Carlos. Let's hear how he felt after the Grand Prix, and then we'll discuss his race in a bit more detail.
I had a tough afternoon or tough evening out there because we were simply not strong enough compared to Mercedes, and we had a very delicate tire management today. Every time we were half pushing and trying to extract pace from the car, we were graining the tires, and it meant that we just couldn't push all day, and we had to settle for a very slow pace if we didn't want to destroy the tires, and unfortunately didn't pay off.
That was Carlos Sainz talking to me a little bit earlier on, and it was a little bit scrappy at times from Ferrari. That pit stop call when the team weren't ready with the tyres and he was told to stay out. They weren't on their best form, I would say, but to still get a podium, I think was good, given that perhaps we thought they were favourites coming into the weekend. Maybe they expected more, but when we realised that Mercedes were way ahead, maybe this P3 was the best of the rest today.
Yeah, I think it was. I think they ran into tyre troubles with both cars. Carlos Sainz having a really hairy moment coming into the pit lane, as you say, and being quite angry at times over the team radio. And
telling them to wake up. I did feel for them a little, because I don't know about you, I felt a touch sleepy over the race. It's late, obviously. It's actually 1:30 here in the morning. But yes, he was pretty firm on the radio, wasn't he?
It is tough, and even Charles Leclerc, I wasn't happy with how that race panned out on his side of the garage as well. At times, Carlos Sainz being asked to swap out the way for his teammates. They both tried to keep Hamilton behind at one stage. It was a bit of a scrappy race from Ferrari overall. I think they will take the podium and the fourth, because what this does is it closes them to within a race distance, and of a race win, I should say, of McLaren when it comes to the Constructors' Championship. So it's valuable points earned for them. It's another podium for Sainz, who is sort of kicking off this swan song for his Ferrari career. But I think there will be a few head scratches going on at Ferrari as to why they weren't as dominant as I think they were expecting compared to Mercedes.
Yeah, P3 for Carlos Sainz, ahead of his teammate Charles Leclerc, who came home P4. And then it was Max Verstappen, the 4-time world champion. And let me tell you, there are still people going in and out of the Red Bull hospitality. Laurent Mekies, of course, team principal at RB, has just come in to, I'm sure, congratulate everyone. And normally they share hospitality, Red Bull and RB, but I think they're a bit further down this weekend. So he's actually made the effort to come up and say well done. And as I'm looking over my shoulder into the hospitality unit, Max Verstappen is being interviewed by film crews inside, his face all lit up. He's actually swapped out his champion cap. He was wearing a champion cap earlier on. He's back to the normal one. But yeah, lots of people inside the hospitality unit just wanting to be a part of this moment. So if we look further down, it was Lando Norris behind Max Verstappen. And then it sort of was a little bit quiet elsewhere, would we say. We had a couple of DNFs, Alex Albon finishing prematurely with a PU issue, and Pierre Gasly as well with a suspected power unit issue, but actually it could be an exhaust issue, and we're waiting to hear from the team on that. But I think Gasly was saying that they've got enough engines in the pool to not see a penalty coming their way in the final two races. And of course they are in that tight battle in the championship for P6. It's still going to sort of rumble on, isn't it, for the final two races?
It is, and actually that's gone the way of Haas after this weekend. They're back up into sixth place in the Constructors, with Hülkenberg getting 4 points for eighth, Tsunoda just behind in ninth, but there's only a handful of points separating Haas, Alpine and RB now for that coveted sixth position, and it is worth millions of dollars in prize money for those teams at the end of the year. And just to come back on the McLarens as well, I mean, sixth and seventh, it was a bit of a lonely race for them in the end, in terms of they weren't really expecting to make much of an impact. This wasn't going to be their kind of track. They'll go much better in Qatar. They'll be good around there.
Sergio Perez, a little word on him. Finally scraping into the points there. Take that final point for P10. What an overtake. My goodness me, we had 3 cars abreast, and Sergio Perez sending it from, I don't know, Los Angeles straight down the
on his best mate Liam Lawson.
Yeah, yeah. I think everyone was trying to prove a point at that point, but that was a tasty little overtake. But of course, just 1 point for his effort. So, Las Vegas, guys, second time being here for Formula One in sort of the modern era. We enjoyed the weekend a little bit more. I think I'm going to go first. I have, because last year was a little bit chaotic, but it's been rather fitting that the championship was decided here, and Max Verstappen's been crowned a 4-time world champion because, you know, Viva Las Vegas, it's bigger and better here, it's lit up beautifully, and celebrations were pretty interesting, weren't they? The drivers going up to the Bellagio, coming back for the podium. I know Max Verstappen wasn't on the podium, but it's a fitting place to crown a champion, Alice.
No, it certainly is. They put on a great show. The firework display was pretty impressive at the end, and the race was brilliant. It was a good race last year as well, but if you go up and down and talk to the staff that are on the ground in the teams, for example, the Williams team didn't leave the track until 4:30 this morning, and then they're back at track, I think 3 p.m. Every single team member that I've spoken to is knackered, and a lot of them say this is not a race that we want to be at, but for us as fans, it's a great race to watch. The racing has been exciting, and yeah, we've crowned our world champion for the year.
And it was funny, as we were all rushing into the pit lane to get a glimpse of Max Verstappen and the 3 drivers on the podium, there were freight cases already out in the pit lane because they need to hurry. They need to get everything ready because we are racing again in 8. Well, hang on, it's 20 to 2 in the morning on the Sunday. So actually, I shall
tell you what time it is in Qatar, because I've got it on my phone. It's 12:30 in the afternoon.
Now that's completely scrambled my brain. But it's not long, is it, until we race again? So everything's got to be packed up. It's going to be a hard few weeks to see out this season. Of course, it's not just Qatar. We've then got Abu Dhabi, the season finale in 2 weeks' time. So Yeah, almost need to pace oneself, I think, at the moment. But guys, what a pleasure to spend a weekend in Las Vegas with you both. We've had a laugh. There's been lots of action.
How much money did you lose in the end?
I didn't lose anything. I don't touch the stuff. No gambling for me. I actually don't know how it all works. That's my
Put
excuse.
it all on blue.
Yeah. Oh dear. We'll have to come back next year so
Or
I can
silver.
have a go.
Is there silver?
Yeah. Oh dear. Alice is worse than
I don't
me.
have a clue either.
Oh dear. God, Harry, have you made any money?
I have made $25 off our producer Paddy, and that's it.
Was that in the casino?
No.
Oh. Just a personal joke and a
That was
private
just-
bet.
Yeah, he owed me a bottle of water. That's how
dear.
much they are around here.
Well, on that note, we will leave you. We'll be heading back to the UK and on to Qatar next weekend because that is the next round. But we leave Las Vegas with a newly crowned 4-time world champion, Max Verstappen. What a talent, what a performance this year, truly deserved. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.